Hi, my name is Darren Horne, and I've been asked by Darren to do a masterclass on leadership and communication for the Worldwide Immigrants Association. And I love this subject. For me, communication is magic. It's just magic. We do it so often, it becomes mundane. But the fact that we can take the letters of the alphabet, 26 letters of the alphabet, mix them all up, write them down or say them, and we can make somebody cry. We can give somebody hope. We can make somebody angry. That's magic. It's phenomenal. And if we do so with intent, we can have a really powerful impact on the world. I think it's so magical that I do think you need to think of yourself as whatever word you like, a wizard, a witch, a magician, an illusionist. That's what you're doing. You're pulling words, language, body language, the way you say things, maybe images, and you're impacting the world with them. And you can do that at scale with leadership and that level of influence. So that's what I'm going to talk about a little. We're going to touch on communication techniques. We're going to touch on what leadership is and some hopefully tips and tricks that will help supercharge your communication. A little bit about me, a little bit, I don't know, I fell in love with film, actually, with storytelling when I was 7, and I first saw the original Star Wars. Loved it. Not just for the level of kind of sacrifice and nobility within it. I love the idea of the Force, like kind of good guys, bad guys. That's also really about emotional intelligence that I'll touch on a little bit. And then I went on and I did a communications degree for which I did a lot of film for. And I did a master's degree in media futures because I'm obsessed with where we're going. I've run a cinema, I've run a martial arts studio, which is fascinating to me that I ended up doing that. But it makes sense if you kind of look at the path of my life. The reason that's important is then you realize how much you're communicating to yourself. Communication and leadership isn't all about how you do that outwardly, it's also how you do that inwardly. You're like the CEO of your own company. How are you managing your thoughts? And that, you know, the rubber hits the road, is that the same? Is when someone's trying to punch you in the face. And that's a really great way of building emotional intelligence, because you get to decide how you feel about somebody trying to punch you in the face. Weirdly, the hardest thing when I ran a martial arts studio is getting people to punch other people in the face. You know, I had nice clients, I suppose. And you also realize that your mind and body is connected, which was another big breakthrough for me. So the way I hold my body impacts how I feel. And as you understand, if you're a leader, the way you hold your body impacts those around you. If you look kind of small, shifty, it won't inspire confidence. So you're tall, and this is the same with martial arts. If I start to cower, my opponent's going to feel more confident. If I stand strong, I'll feel strong. They will think I'm confident, even if I'm just faking it. But I will become confident because of the way I'm holding my body. And my day job is I lecture at a college. I lecture on communication and media, and I'm a neuro-linguistic program practitioner, and I'm just constantly learning leadership. And I have started this consultancy where I basically do things like this, but in person. There's loads more to it than that, but the rest of my life story will probably drip out. So I'm going to start. So the leader within an immigrant, I love this as a concept, and it really fits with what I'm going to say today. I'm starting with 2 quotes. The first is, not everything has to be true all the time. And this is something that crops up in NLP a lot, neuro-linguistic programming. And I think it's unknown. I couldn't find who said it. How probably our ego wants to be like, this is the facts, this is the truth. And there's loads of kind of theories around this, like cognitive bias and things like that, where it's really hard to accept new things. And even if everything has changed. And not everything has to be true all the time. In fact, you can absolutely contradict yourself from day to day if it gets you through the day. One of my favorite ways of doing that is with the size of the universe. So some days I'll say, wow, the universe is so infinite, so huge, so beautiful that it doesn't care about me. Which can be an empowering thing, like none of this is personal. The universe isn't conspiring to cause me pain or anything. It's just that I'm just here. Or you could say, wow, the universe is so amazingly incredible and beautiful, and I'm part of the universe. And that makes me kind of powerful and strong and magical or whatever. You know, it doesn't have to be true. And that occurs to all things. You know, one day it might be true that you need to deploy a certain strategy, but the next day it may not be true, and you go with a different strategy. And it's built on this quote, the map is not the territory. Sometimes you'll hear it as the map is not the terrain. In the leadership program at MIT, a system called Theory U, they kind of call this downloading. So if I'm communicating to you, if I'm making noises as I am, what you do, so that's like, you could talk about that as being, I guess you could call that the territory, I suppose. And what you do is take your map, the meaning you give these words in my communication, and you download it onto that territory. But your map is not the territory. Your map is like the best guess of what that territory looks like. And sometimes it can be close, sometimes it won't be. But certainly if you're kind of an immigrant going into a new country, but also I think this applies if you're going into a new organization, a new culture. You know, your perception, your map might be, will certainly be out of date to a certain extent. And this goes to Plato's cave. If you've heard of that story about the guy in the cave, everyone's in the cave and they're watching shadows on the wall and they think that's reality. And then a guy goes out of the cave. He's like, wow, this is reality out here. And comes back in. He's like, guys, you need to come outside. This is just shadows. This is just a map of the territory. And people don't want to leave because they like the map. So the map is not the territory is a way for you to be curious. And the leadership model I came up with is called keyhole leadership. And the reason it's called that is because we're looking at the universe. It's actually a line from Marvel's Doctor Strange. You're a man looking at the universe through a keyhole. We are all people looking at the universe through a keyhole, and we're not seeing the big picture. Firstly, we only hear and see certain things anyway. We've only got a certain amount of senses. You know, our dogs, our cats can see more or hear more, but we're also a product of our culture, our background, and the environment that we're in. But this isn't, you know, entirely. But you can get even more woo-woo in terms of reality. Like, this isn't reality. Like, this isn't solid. Like, if you had that theory that if you took all the space out of our body, you'd be the size of a sugar cube. And this, if you'd zoom right in, this is all kind of atoms. It kind of can be quite freaky when you start thinking like that. So the map is not the territory, is that your perception of the world or communication or meaning is not necessarily what was meant. So a lot of this training is about trying to find the truth as much as we can, although allegedly, in any given conversation, any 10-minute conversation, we lie like 3 times. And we do. People don't like it when I say they're lying, but they're being deceitful. So how's your day? Fine. Was it? Lie. But people, you know, lie is an everyday part of their day. Okay, so I love starting with this image. This is Earthwise. So Apollo 8 went up. They were the first people to go to the moon. They were really focused on going to the moon. We're going to go to the moon. We're going to go to the moon. This is amazing. And they didn't occur to them that they're also going to see the Earth. They were leaving the Earth. And there's a point, apparently, where they turn the live feed around and they show everyone at home the Earth. This blue, beautiful marble floating in infinite space with a tiny barrier around it protecting it. And the reason I'm showing this is partly because I don't really believe in borders and countries. It's, you know, they're man-made, they're fictional. Not all countries existed, you know, a few years ago. I find it strange we have to show papers to move between countries. It's like, how did that happen? But also to have compassion. Like, we're all on that marble. We're all on it. There's a whole world out there which is getting curiosity. And it's almost like the human race is one organism. It's like I'm the thumb and you're the finger. We're all kind of joined. And when you look at it in that way, you realize how important leadership is and your involvement of leading with intent. Because the number one thing that all leaders should be thinking about right now is climate change. And when you see the Earth that fragile, you realize we need to be doing something about it. But this isn't a lecture on how to get involved in climate change. It's more just perception. And astronauts have this thing called the overview effect, where they just have like love and compassion. And they say that if politicians could see that view in reality, they would stop wars. You know, it's silly, it's insane. Which is where compassion comes through. So alongside curiosity in keyhole leadership, there's compassion and courage, which I'll talk to you a bit in the following slides. Earthwise, beautiful. So how to be a leader. To be a leader, you're going to tell stories. I mean, that's the way that we inspire people, right? And learning storytelling is fantastic. If you ever, in fact, there's so many angles we could take with this. So if you think about the big events, the big speeches that changed the world, it was stories. You know, going back to the moon landers, JFK, you know, we're going to land on the moon by this date. Inspires people. Martin Luther King, I have a dream. It's like, it's a story. If you've ever been in public transport or in a cafe and you hear someone telling the story, oh, you won't believe what my wife did yesterday. You're like, oh, I need to hear, I need to hear. Anyone with a kid, I have a 4-year-old daughter. If I'm like, hey, I want to tell you a story. She's like, a story. Like, we love stories. We love storytelling. And we're all storytellers in some way, even if it's just like, what did you do at the weekend? And if you develop that skill and you start to commit to it, and you could build up like kind of 4 stories that your go-to kind of fun stories. It engages people and they'll follow you. They'll follow the story. You know, statistically, you'll remember stories like 60, 70% if someone tells you a story, but you'll remember like 4% of a statistic, something like that. If you look at all the best TED Talks, they're telling stories. So the hero's journey is a narrative structure that appears in all stories, really. It goes back to, you know, early religions, it goes back to the Greeks, and a guy called Joseph Campbell went around and analyzed all these stories and realized that they had a structure, they had certain characters or archetypes, they had certain narrative plots. His book is called, I think it's called The Hero's Journey, and it's pretty full on. It's, you know, I read it for my degree. Chris Vogler works for Disney, and he adapted it slightly to really focus it on the film, and that's a lot of an easier read. That's called The Writer's Journey. So I'm just going to give you a quick breakdown of what that is. And there's a reason for this. Firstly, it applies brilliantly to immigrants, but it also applies brilliantly to leaderships. And it's actually, I had communicated with Chris Vogel at one point. I was asking him about it. He said, you do realize that this isn't just a template for writing scripts. This is a template to live your life. And that's why this slide is here. So the hero's journey, you're in the ordinary world. So Luke on Tatooine in the first Star Wars, Katniss in District 12, Frodo in the Shire in Lord of the Rings. Me right now here, this is my ordinary world. Maybe if you're about to change countries, you in your home country, the relationship you're in right now is your ordinary world. A job you're in is your ordinary world. It's like everything's okay and you're probably quite calm and everything's good. What then happens is you get a thing called the call to adventure. So in Star Wars, it's Obi-Wan being like, you must come with me to Obi-Wan. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope. In The Hobbit, Gandalf walks up and he's like, you should come with me. Katniss Everdeen, she actually volunteers. It's like a volunteer as tribute, but she doesn't want to. And what happens is the hero does not want to go. Like the Greek heroes were like glory hunters. You know, the definition of heroes kind of evolved more since then. We don't really want to go. It's why, because the hero should also be changed by the journey. It means they're getting good experience points. Look at Pirates of the Caribbean, Johnny Depp's character, it's not really the hero because he doesn't change, he doesn't develop, and he always wants to get involved. So the hero doesn't want to go, and it takes the mentor, the Gandalfs, the Obi-Wan Kenobis, to guide you, and they usually give you a gift, so like a lightsaber. So in your life, your mentor could be, you know, your brother, a parent, it could be me right now. We play multiple roles. It could be someone online, a biography that you're reading. Like, who are you learning from? Who's the wisdom that you can, that's going to help you head out on your journey? And a gift won't be a lightsaber, sadly, or a wand. It will be advice. It will be a tie for an interview. It will be a lift. It would be, who knows, a gift of money. It could be anything, but the mentor will give you gifts. And then you'll find your allies, your Hermione's, your Han Solos, and you set off on the journey. And you'll come across things called threshold guardians, usually low-level obstacles like stormtroopers or wolves. It's actually why my logo is a wolf, because in a lot of fantasy films and games as well, like Skyrim and Witcher, when you come across a wolf, you know you're on the journey. You know you've head out on the path. But in real life, this could be, oh, like I've just moved house, so it's like call centers trying to change my address. That's a threshold guardian trying to block me from achieving my goal. It could be an application form. It could be an interview. Like, it could be all these little obstacles. And we use the language of this all the time. Like, I'm sure you all mentioned about trolls, or that, oh, that person's a witch, or she's a dragon. It's like we're using this language. That man's a beast. Like, we use this language because it's part of psychology. You go look at like people like Carl Jung. And dream analysis. It's part of who we are. So you head out on the journey, you go across all these threshold guardians, you get to the dragon, which is the big thing you're trying to achieve. So maybe it's a job interview, maybe it's fixing your own car, maybe it's asking someone on a date, and you defeat it, and then the treasure that is going to make you happy is behind the dragon. And Joseph Campbell calls this following your bliss. The thing that will make you happiest is behind your greatest fear. And that's a hard thing for people to live their life during. But it can get, once you start, it can actually get quite intoxicating. And I did this recently. We had a well-being day at work, and I signed up for a singing class because I can't sing, but my 4-year-old daughter keeps making me sing. And I knew the tutor, and I like her. And then I tried to get out of it on the day. I said, Anna, I've got a cough. And she was like, you've got a cough? What are you doing? She kind of patronized me. And then, so I went up late, and I could hear them singing. And it was a quiet, it sounded good. I put my hand on the door handle, and I stopped. I was like, can I get away with not going? And I wanted to run away and not do this. And then I realized I was in the hero's journey. Like, I was refusing the call to adventure. I was trying to back away. And because I live my life by this, I was like, I have to go in. So I went in, and as my mentor in that situation, guiding me on how to sing, my allies are the people singing with me. And the dragon is trying to sing, and then the fear and the anxiety is all internal, because the threshold guardians and the dragons can be internal as well. Imposter syndrome, anxiety, depression, all that kind of stuff are things that you overcome. And I'd certainly argue that sometimes the biggest quest, the biggest battle is in your head rather than something external to yourself. So I sang, and I was buzzing for like 48 hours. And even now, I'm telling you that story, it's clearly stayed with me, right? So it can be small things. You're the hero all the time. You're leading all the time. And stories is how you're going to get people to follow you. They even do this, like when you talk about leadership in the military now, you can't just order people to do stuff. You have to persuade them to do something. And that's why they tell stories. I went on longer than I thought with that one. I got really passionate about it. The last thing with that is once you defeated the dragon, got the treasure, you come back to the ordinary world and you share what you've learned. There's some more beats to it than that, and feel free to go and research it more, but that's the bulk of it. It's stepping out of your comfort zone. So what is leadership? So leadership versus management. I kind of love this. It's, I just want to, yeah, good, double check that we're recording. And there's a reason I chose that photo. So again, not everything has to be true all the time. Just got out of a hole I dug myself into. You're all leaders, we're all leading all the time. But to be an effective leader, you need to do so with intent. I think you also need to do it with love. I think to be a good leader, you need to be trying to make the world a better place, or at least for what you believe to be a better place. So managers, are not always leaders. Sometimes they're just like micromanagers, and they doesn't feel like they care about you, and you don't feel listened to, and you don't trust them. All these are blocks to engaging with a leader. And there's tons of statistics around this, employee engagement and stuff that support this. This guy in a suit is not necessarily, you don't have to even look a certain way. Your leadership doesn't come with authority, it doesn't come with your position. You're leading all the time. If you communicate in any way, with words, with your body language, with your actions, with your inactions, with your silence, when you are silent, you are leading, because you're having an impact on those around you, because you're not having an influence, because you're not having an impact, which is an impact in itself. So if you communicate in any way, you have influence. If you have influence, you are by default a leader. You can't get away from this. You are leading now. A really good example of this is, I like this because it suggests that leadership has to do with corporate or organization. That is not true. Anyone with a parent knows this. Our kids are watching us all the time. It's why we have to be careful what we say and what we do. It's why we're overly polite in the cafe. It's why, and here's another example of when I do this. If I'm walking, if I'm a pedestrian walking along, hit the traffic lights, and the light's red, but there's no traffic, I wait for the light to be green. Why would I do that? I could just run across the road, because there might be a kid in a car or looking out a bedroom window, and there's mum's like, oh, you've got to wait for the guy to be green before you can cross the road. And then he sees me not do that. He's like, well, that guy didn't. And they just undermined their mum. We're in a village, we're in an ecosystem. You're impacting those around you all the time. And yeah, Simon Sinek talks about kind of oxytocin, the love drug. Like if you do a nice thing to someone, you get a hit of oxytocin, that makes you feel good. They get a hit of oxytocin, which makes them feel good. And anyone who witnessed you be kind gets a hit of oxytocin, which makes them feel good. So that they're more likely to go and do things that are going to impact the world and make the world a nicer place. So leadership is influence, and personally, I think you should do it with love and compassion. A real quick kind of magical curiosity thing that we can do, like if you take the word management and just pop it in your hand, and then okay, well, what color is it? What shape is it? Is it, you know, circular? Is it smooth? Is it jagged? What's it made of? Is it making a sound? Is it solid, or is it, you know, liquid? Is it floating, or is it heavy? How heavy is it? How heavy is the word management? That'd be so cute. If you do this, let me know what you come up with. Well, your answer is personal to you. So, you know, if I said, oh, mine's the color purple, well, what color? Because again, this is communication, right? Purple means something different to me than you. The map is not the territory. Then in your other hand, you can be like, okay, I'm going to put leadership in that hand. Well, what color is that? What shape is that? Is that making a sound? Is it floating? Is it heavy? What's going on with it? And that's going to help you decide what those two words actually mean. Because it's not just words, you know, it's feelings. There's something more going on. You can also do that with like your children, or maybe decisions like, do I want to start this business, or do I want to stay with this job? What is that? What's going on? And just be like, what shape are they? What sound? What smell are they making? Just see what your subconscious mind kind of brings up. So to recap, leadership is influence. You are communicating all the time, which means you're influencing all the time, you're leading. Please do so with love. And I love this one. So as part of, you know, my roles, I go on podcasts a lot, or I'll do a talk, or I go on the radio, I go on TV sometimes, and people around me think I'm eager, that, oh, what a shock, Darren's doing that, oh, egotistical. And it's not true. I'm actually introverted, and I have social anxiety, and that kind of stuff drains me for 24 hours. The reason I do it is partly because I've had mental health issues in the past. I had postnatal depression, which I didn't know guys could get. And the people who shared, men who shared their story about depression, really helped me. So Stephen Fry, Matt Haig, people like that. And I'd then gone on my hero's journey and overcome these obstacles. So I have a responsibility to share. This is also part of being in an ecosystem, like trying to make the world a better place. I also have a 4-year-old daughter. I want the world to be a better place. I want to make the world the best I can for her. So it's not ego to get involved and want to make change and get on platforms and influence at scale. Like, that's not ego, or it shouldn't be. Like, so a lot of, say, for example, entrepreneurs want to like write for Forbes magazine, or they want to get on that show, or they want to do that, or they want that position. Like, a load of people start calling themselves CEOs, or like when they're really sole traders, because it's ego, right? And I've made that mistake in the past. Not with CEO, but I've made business choices based on ego. It's actually it's ecosystem. We are all in an ecosystem. You have a responsibility with your skill base and your beliefs and your values to get involved in the ecosystem and make change and to influence it and try and make it a better place, because there's way too many people making it a worse place. And this is really powerful. I keep using the kind of ecosystem a lot. And it's that awareness as well that I am impacting those around me. It's kind of like we're in water or whatever. Like, I had ripples. If I kind of move, it impacts the person next to me. The way I speak, the way I hold my body, the actions I take, I'm impacting people all the time. The stuff I put on social media. Remember, it's magic. You know, we're influencing people for better or worse. So start influencing people in the way that is in line with your beliefs and values, and try and do that consistently. And that's key as well. Like, we're in this coronavirus thing at the moment, and a great example of consistency, I can't remember who the lady was, but there was a press conference and she was giving a talk and saying, try to limit how much you touch your mouth and your nose and your face. And she licked her finger to turn the page. So she wasn't embodying her beliefs and values. And ways you can find this is, you know, meditation, mindfulness. Ask your friends how they see you. You know, do an anonymous survey. Give me 3 words that describe you. Like, work out how you're being to the world. And if you don't like it, change it. So, ecosystem. Vulnerability is good. Again, it's interesting that I mentioned depression, because and so many people hide it. In fact, the biggest pain I've ever felt in my life has been things that people don't talk about. It's been male postnatal depression, which you didn't know guys could get. It was also a miscarriage. We had a miscarriage. I had no clue that was coming. I naively thought people who smoked or drank during pregnancy would have miscarriages, and we did. And once we started talking about it, like friends were like, "Oh yeah, I've had 3." My mum was like, "Oh yeah, I had 1 before you." I was like, "What?" But there's things people keep secret and hide, maybe out of shame or embarrassment, but who knows? Whereas that's actually the most beautiful thing about being human, is that human connection. The people who you love you the most know the most about you. When you fell in love, you probably fell in love because you stayed up until the early hours of the morning with someone and you shared everything and you took your heart and you were just like, this is me. And they just knew you. You don't have to, you get to choose what you want to share, but don't hide everything. And as a leader, you don't have to always be perfect. You don't have to say, oh, I know exactly what I'm doing. It's okay to say to people, you know what, I need a hand here. Or I'm overwhelmed here. Like, hero's journey. You have allies. Ask who they are. You have mentors. They can help you. And you can do this in business, obviously. You can ask for help, bring in support. But it happened to me recently. I've moved flat recently. And my doors, when they close, they auto lock. And I lock myself out. And the neighbor to let me in wasn't going to be back for half an hour. And you can start to be like, oh my God, this is the worst. What am I going to do? Am I just going to sleep on the doorstep? It's like, no, because I've got a network of allies. I could just face them, like, I need somewhere to stay for the night. But you can do that with business as well. We can think we're more alone than we are. And you're not alone. And actually, sometimes absolute strangers will help. I did this once on Facebook. I said, I need a lift to the airport. You can mock me all the way. You can ask me advice. We can be in silence. Don't care what we do. I just need the lift. And some strangers like, yeah, I'll give you a lift. If you're open and you have an idea of who you are, they'll help you. And so going full Monty, there's lots of different leadership styles, not just Keyhole leadership. Keyhole leadership is just the mix of things that I personally live my life by. It's not a thing. It's a guide for me living my life within my values and beliefs. Full Monty is a guy who's like a social media friend called Dov Power, who's a really big leadership specialist. Full Monty is from the movie Full Monty, which is about some men who strip. Local northern men in England, and they go the Full Monty, which means they're completely naked. And a lot of his training will be, getting CEOs to be like, what's your greatest fear? And knowing someone's greatest fear, my greatest fear is, actually, I think I listened to a podcast, I think it might have been Dov, he said, my greatest fear is I die a coward. Wow, what does that mean? My greatest fear is something happens to my children. My greatest fear is that I never find love. Like, me saying this, what impact is that having on you? When someone shares their greatest fear, what happens? You want to cuddle them. You want to hold their hand. You want to be with them, and that's human connection. And we shouldn't have shame. There's a great documentary on Netflix by Brené Brown all about shame and how toxic shame is. If you're doing behaviors right now that you're ashamed of, stop them. If there's stuff you're ashamed to share, you need to address that. But you saying, I'm struggling right now, can someone help me? You saying, I'm scared of doing that, can someone help me? It's okay. And it's actually a really good way to live your life. People feel like they know you. And I know I just keep telling stories because it's every day for me. Like, this is my life. Like, I remember I had to sell a car after I got a divorce to a company, like a We Buy Any Car company. He was like, so why are you selling the car? I was like, dude, we're getting divorced. I've got to restart. I'm moving out. And he was like, I've been there. Oh, let me see what I can do for you. And I'm sure I got a better price because he was like, I relate to this guy. We're connected. It's powerful. Vulnerability can be good. It's up to you to work out how vulnerable you want to be. So that was kind of a bit of leadership, and I want to get straight onto communication. And I felt like I needed to back that up. So in a job interview, if you only show you can solve technical problems and you have no communication skills, you're a much worse candidate than someone with good communication skills and pretty good technical skills. The key to communication is empathy. So engaging with another human being, understanding their emotions. This is by a guy who was like a top poker player at 21, decided to retrain in coding. When he did his course, he went out to interview, and he was older than the people he was competing against. He only had 1 year's coding experience. They had 10. and he wasn't getting picked. So he went and studied storytelling, communication, and interview techniques. And a bidding war started out over him because he could communicate. And a big part of communication is storytelling. So no matter what you're trying to achieve. So I can't think of necessarily an example, but let's say you're in an interview and they say, okay, tell me about your greatest failure. You know, oh, this one time, well, I was running this business and things weren't great and I probably shouldn't have expanded when I did. So things went bad and closed the business. So okay, tell me about your greatest failure. Oh, let me tell you, it was 2007, right? And I was running this martial arts studio. Things were going great. I'd expanded 2 times already at this point. I was doing really well financially. This was happening. This was happening. I'd asked my partner to marry me, and we were engaged at this point, and it was absolutely great. But I just got, my self-image got wrapped up into it. I started to get ego, and I listened to some bad advice, and I just expanded one step too much, too far. And really the business didn't need the systems that I brought into it. It was working fine. My client, my base didn't want it, but I really felt that I had an image of what success looks like, and I was trying to do that, and I was all wrapped up in my ego. And sadly, you know, I overextended and things went bad, and a few things went bad in my life, and I had to close it. How much more engaging is that? Like, yeah. And you can, you know, flesh it out like I just made that up on the spot pretty much, based loosely on truth. So learn to communicate, and honestly, stories mixed in with vulnerability, mixed in with a hero's journey, like, coming out of your comfort zone is really powerful. So human versus artificial intelligence. The more technologically advanced our society becomes, the more we need to go back to the basic fundamentals of human connection. So Apple's Vice President of Retail, Angela, said that. I could have picked any quote. There's so many quotes on communication. Warren Buffett, Richard Branson, it's key. The reason I wanted this one is the world is changing all the time. And it's interesting because I teach teenagers in, you know, they're going to have a career in 20 years and they still won't be as old as I am now. And I can't tell them what the world looks like then. 20 years ago, we barely had the internet. You know, we didn't have social media. So what are we going to have in 20 years? What I do know is that technology is coming. Robots, AI, automation is coming. A lot of it's already here. So the thing that is most valuable to you is the thing that makes you most human. The thing that's going to help you get hired more than anyone else is the thing that makes you most human. And so that's your ability to rapidly learn. It's your ability to have empathy and emotional intelligence and leadership and communication and storytelling. And if you can communicate effectively, your career prospects will greatly be improved, and you'll be able to manage your own life. You know, I've just come through a divorce. A friend of mine said I should write a book on how to survive a divorce, because we did it about as amicably as you can do, because we communicated effectively and managed ego. So this is going to be just some things I want you to play around with in life and see how you work. This is a communication model. It's in neurolinguistic programming. I'm sure it's probably in other things. What I've realized as I grow older is most things are just regurgitated and just branded differently. Our brains a lot of the time generalize, distort, and delete. So we say, oh, there's no jobs. Well, there are. That again, it goes back to lying, right? You're lying. Oh, I always fail. Lie. Go through the timeline of your life. You'll find a time in which you succeeded. Or they distort it. You know, they'll say, they'll slightly distort the facts. I'm trying to think of an example. So you say, oh, I'm not happy with you. And you distort it. Well, oh, they're really angry with me. Well, that's not what they said. You know, then that's in the interpersonal communication. But you could also say, distort what people mean. So say, oh, they said, oh, they wanted me to tidy the room. And you're like, what they meant is just put my clothes in the hamper. Right? We can distort what people are meaning, particularly if we're not working on communicating effectively. Delete is just you flat out don't even recognize it. You're like, I didn't hear that. And we do it. We literally do that. Sometimes we'll have a conversation with people and we just delete the thing we don't like. And it's fascinating if you've had a kid, like a toddler, 4-year-old, they'll do that. It's like, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to tidy your room, and then we're going to have like chocolate ice cream. Okay, cool, we're having chocolate ice cream. After we tidy your room, chocolate ice cream. but adults, we're not that much more sophisticated. We're pretty much the same. We focus on the thing we like. We delete the stuff we don't like. This can also work in a more toxic way. If you're in a relationship with really negative behavior, you can delete that negative behavior and focus on the good behavior. And all your friends are like, no, just focus on this. Like, this is the stuff. This is the stuff we need to be talking about. So just think about that. When in your life you generalize and distort or delete it. And the language you use is so powerful. So here's another example. I find this really powerful, and it builds on the martial arts stuff I was saying about heaviness, about mind-body connect. So if I say, oh, I have to go to work tomorrow, having to is like a prison sentence. It's like I'm a slave, and so my body like slumps. Like, oh, I have to go to work. No, you don't. You don't have to go to work. That's a distortion and kind of no. It's a distortion. That's not true. You don't have to go to work tomorrow. There's consequences if you don't. They're usually not as bad as you think. If you're in a company, you might get a verbal warning or like something. But it won't be that dramatic probably. But you don't have to go to work tomorrow. You don't have to go to work tomorrow. So okay, well, what are you going to do instead? And then I had this conversation in the talk here. Oh no, we've got to pay the bills. I was like, okay, well, what are bills? Like, what are you talking about? Let's unpack that further. Like, how much money? Oh, you need this much money to live. No, you don't. That's a lie. That's a generalization. You need this much money to live in this country, in this place, in that house that you want to live in. Like, what if you went to the Philippines? How much is it to live in the Philippines? What money can you earn online that can generate that much? People create their own prisons by generalizing, distorting, and deleting. And if you have curiosity and then the courage to follow that, then you can achieve great things, and you can find different ways of being, different ways of living. So start to be a little bit aware. Like a much better way of saying, I've got to go to work is, oh, I choose to go to work. And I kind of, this comes up a lot. Like I choose to. I don't have to cover my friend's shift. I choose to cover my friend's shift because I really appreciate them and I want to help them out. It's magic, because that would change literally change your emotional setting as well. I think I'm okay for time. So the power of rapport. Some of you might have seen this before. 7% of meaning comes from words. 38% is how we say those words, so paraverbally. 55% is body language. That's not technically true, but it's true enough that, or it's powerful enough so that you can at least change your behavior based on it. So 7% of meaning come from words. So if I say, I bought a car. I haven't told you anything. I haven't told you what color it is, what make. You have no detail about what that's whatsoever. So how do I say those words? I've bought a car. How do I say it? No, that's too much body language. I bought a car. So, okay, so now there's excitement. This must be quite a nice car. Or then body language, like, I bought a car. It's like, okay, it's really, really excited. And again, this is a weird thing about my teenagers start doing, my teenage students do, is we read a children's book and we kind of pass it around to help people speak with more emotion and less kind of, not formulate, monotone. And I think this is a great way to do storytelling. So if you want to become a better storyteller, start reading children's books out loud. So it's like, we're going on a bear hunt. We're going to catch a big one. We're not scared. Like, really go into it, and because you're creating more meaning. And a lot, even when you've got kids that's pre-language, pre-communication, they build onto the meaning, the way you say it. You can read anything to them, and you can engage them. So the power of rapport is huge. Rapport is also matching language, the speed of your voice. If they're like, oh my God, you won't believe what happened. You're like, I don't know, what happened? You haven't joined them in that level. So if they're, oh my God, you won't believe what happened. Oh my God, tell me. It's like, yeah, you've jumped on the thought train. You're following them down it. So matching the speed, matching the tone, matching the kind of language they're using, ideally always the same, semi-matching their body language. If they've folded their arm slightly, you fold your arm slightly. If they're kind of tapping a hand, you can kind of tap a toe. You just start to get in sync with them, speaking the same language, not just with words, but how you say it and what your body's doing. Get in sync. True communication can happen. So play around with rapport, see what happens. I love it. This is generally called the Jedi mind trick. It's not just a me thing. So this is the power of mirroring the last three or critical three words back to someone. This is part of neurolinguistic programming, but there's a great book by Chris Voss called Never Split the Difference. He was the FBI's lead hostage negotiator. and he uses this he used it to free hostages. So you can use this in different ways, but again, practice it. So if someone says, I'm really stressed, you say, you're really stressed? And they're like, yeah, you won't believe what happened at work today. You're like, what happened at work today? And it's going to feel clunky the first few times, but they won't pick up on it because they're on a train of thought. They're using language that fits that track. If you use any other language, you're pushing that train off its track and you're taking it somewhere else. Even if you think you're using the same language, like I'm really angry. You're really mad. No, that's not what they said. They said angry. Mad may mean angry to you, but mad doesn't necessarily mean angry to them. So it's to have a play with it and just see what happens. It's the last 3 critical words, or you can play around with it. Sometimes it can be a question, but the aim is to keep them on that thought process, to not bring them out of the path that they're making. Give it a play. This builds on the lazy Jedi questions, which is like NLP. So what kind of X is that? So X is like anything. So I bought a car. What kind of car is that? You're going to get a bonus this year. What kind of bonus is that? I think we should go on a date. What kind of date is that? Like, get details, right? This is really important, certainly for relationships, because sometimes we think we're communicating when we're not. It's like, oh, can you do the shopping? But you know, what kind of shopping? Oh, can you fix us dinner tonight? What kind of dinner? Like, there's a line. You don't want to be annoying, but finding out more detail allows for a more harmonious life. And do it with yourself as well. I'm going to be really successful next year. Well, what kind of success? What does that look like? Is there anything else about that success, which is the next one? Because sometimes people don't want to be a nuisance, or their ego is assuming you've understood them. So you want to be clear, particularly if it's a new business idea, or if it's a new plan, and you're taking your family on a new adventure. And a new adventure thing is great. It's again for, you know, it's like the hero's journey, isn't it? Like immigrants are kind of leaving onto a new quest. So make sure everyone's on board. What's going on? Now, I'm stressed. What kind of stress is that? Lazy Jedi questions. Ideally, you want to do it with a bit of rapport. There's more questions in clean languages than this. I've just picked a couple. I don't want to overwhelm you. So what would you like to have happen is an incredibly powerful question to ask people. It almost doesn't matter. Family, personal, business. You can ask, you can say it to your manager, you can say it to your direct reports. So what would you like to have happen here? You know, you can say it with a family dispute. Like, oh, I'm really angry with our teenage daughter. Okay, what would you like to have happen? Well, I just wish she appreciated me more. Okay, in what way? Well, she could just say thank you. Okay, so anything else about that? Well, you know, thank you, and it would help if she just tied it up after herself sometimes. Okay. What would need to happen what would we need to do for that to happen? Well, I suppose I should tell her. Right? We get so wrapped up in our own drama. So what would you like to have happen is amazing. I want to move to another country. Okay, what would you like to have happen? Okay, well, I want it to go on these steps. I want to get this job. Okay, in what way? Okay. You start to flesh it out. You build it. You create a vision, you know? It's like, is there anything else about that? You want to exhaust the subject. And it allow you to problem solve much quicker. It's hard because there's so many different applications for this, like business, you know, you're all in individual circumstances, so which is why you should hit me out with questions, honestly, if you're struggling with anything. But it applies to just please play, like jot it down and be like, okay, today I'm going to ask, what would you like to have happen? I did it today. One of my students was saying that there's a student who everyone's kind of falling out with. And she was like, and she did this, and she did this, and she did this. I was like, okay, what would you like to have happen? She said, well, you know, I want to stop. Okay. And then you just kind of keep asking questions. Have a play. Be curious. Be curious to see what would happen. Be the magicians and the wizards that I know you know. Use these spells I'm giving you. Okay, I think we're coming to the end, which is good because I think I've run over a bit. Chunking. This is the guy from the Goonies. I'm such a movie geek, aren't I? So we express ourselves with a certain amount of detail, and we can match that detail, we can chunk up and chunk down. So big chunks is when we have very little detail, small chunks when we have a lot of detail. Sticking with the family view, teenagers often talk in big chunks. So, hey, Sarah, how was your day? Fine. What did you do at school today? Nothing much. as a parent, it can be frustrating. Like, I want more detail because you want that human connection, right? Want to hear the stories, the hero's journey, the vulnerabilities. You want to connect. So again, we give an example. I was running a cinema years back, and I had a projectionist, I think it was on the autistic scale, and he would speak in so much detail, and he would bore people. But it was his personality type. So he would be like, oh, when I was in Scunthorpe, and you know, the lead projectionist was Dave O'Malley, and we used to use magnesium then, and it was 1962, and it was like details. Oh, and if you could match him, oh wow, you used magnesium then. What was that like? He said, oh, magnesium was really highly flammable. Highly flammable. See how I mirrored then? Just he would get so happy that somebody was listening to him and communicating in the way that he wanted to communicate. You know, you can obviously, particularly if it's a teenager or if you're a manager with a direct report and they're talking in big chunks, you know, that's probably not appropriate. So you know, or you need to deal with it because you know what's going on. So you know, you could be like, okay, how's your team doing today? Are they fine? Okay, well, if you want to get smaller chunks, go back to clean language. So, okay, in what way? Is there anything else about your team being fine? Or mirror, oh, your team's fine? Yeah, they're fine. You know, well, you know, John's got a bit of a challenge right now, but we're helping him. You keep expanding the knowledge, you keep finding out more. So big chunkings can be really fun to do. And again, in relationships and business, like if you're managing a direct report, how much detail do you need to give your team? You know, it might need to be small chunks. Yeah, again, breaking down success. It's, oh, can you prepare that presentation? So, oh yeah, fine. Well, what does that mean? So, okay, you know, in what way? I mean, what does it look like? Is there anything more about that presentation? How long is it going to be? You know, it helps you avoid failure because of miscommunication. Same with family. You know, so, oh dear, can you cook dinner tonight? Okay. What kind of dinner is that? Because if you just put a pizza in the oven, maybe that's not acceptable. Can you tidy the house? Okay, in what way? Oh, actually, just run the Hoover around. Is there anything else about that? Oh, it'd be great if you could also do whatever, you know? Good communication can create harmony. So what have we learned? Well, coronavirus says don't shake hands. You're a leader, you are. And I really hope you can learn to focus on influencing with love. If you can start addressing ego, it's not all about us. If someone else is acting in a bad way or causing harm, they're probably in pain. Someone cuts you up in traffic, they might be rushing to the hospital to visit a friend. You know, it's, if you can, I think, again, going back to the 4-year-old, like, she's a test. She's testing me right now. And sometimes, I don't like this phrase, like triggered, but that's kind of what it's like. Sometimes she can create an emotional peak in me. And my job as the adult and the leader and the mentor and the Jedi, or whatever you want to call yourself, is to manage that and to make responsible decisions, not based on emotion, certainly not negative emotion. You're part of an ecosystem, you're impacting all those around you. If you're an immigrant, you're changing ecosystems in the same way that you join a new, even if you join a new family, you know, marry into a new family or date into a new family, it's a new ecosystem. You need to feel like you're in Star Trek, you've beamed down, it's like, what's going on? You know, you're investigating, you're just gathering data. And that's what communication, what this communication is about, not just storytelling and influence, but gathering data, getting the big picture, being curious, seeing the world through other people's eyes, having empathy, all these join together. So vulnerability is powerful as well. And I've tried to embody that a little bit by just dropping in stories, you know, from my life. Please tell stories. It's the greatest way to hook people. And don't be afraid to ask questions. It's okay. Miscommunication costs companies fortunes. Miscommunications causes the deterioration of families. Like, it's worth learning. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. If you do some of this, or there's something that I've said that really resonated with you, like, hit me up if you want like further reading or videos for me to send you, or courses that you want to do. Like, hit me up. I love this subject so much, which is probably why I've run over. Obviously, I'm keyhole leadership. So what we learned: communicate with courage, compassion, and curiosity. Have the courage to ask people new questions. Have the courage to go on new journeys, step out of your comfort zone. Do everything with compassion for other people. Think about that little blue marble floating in space. We're all on it. We're all deeply, deeply vulnerable. We're all in it together. And be curious about the world, not just what other people have got to say, but curious about different ways of doing things, different cultures. Like, everyone's got a story to tell if you just communicate effectively and ask them. So I hope that was beneficial. I actually had a lot of fun preparing these slides, and I've had a lot of fun delivering it as well. I hope you got something out of it too. I just want to finalize it by saying, I do this. Like, this is how I certainly try to live, and it amazes me just the opportunities, and not just opportunities you can get, but also how you can alleviate someone else's pain, the things you can find out, the impact you can have on the world, the way you can influence the world, the way you can lead is through effective communication. So thank you so much for getting this far. Have a wonderful day, evening, and look after each other.